Welcome to the Balanced Excellence Show. We're with Erica Suter, internationally known strength conditioning and what I like to call preventive maintenance coach. She specializes in women's soccer. She's on the 25th anniversary team from Johns Hopkins University. Erica, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive in on everything youth training and college sports.
You know what? Let's start right with college sports. Your Johns Hopkins has 35 women on the team, one from New Zealand, one from China. Recruiting has truly become an international endeavor. With this becomes what soccer is known for as an equivalency sport at the Division I level. In other words, the athletes get a fraction of a scholarship, whereas in a head count sport, they can get a lot. In soccer, for women, there's 14 in the Division I level full scholarships, but they can be fractionalized. Can you talk to us, Erica, about who gets the scholarships and how really, as they come up through the program, your specialty, how important health is, both mental and physical?
Yeah, absolutely happy to speak on this. So with Johns Hopkins, they're a D3 program and they're a private school. So there are not many athletic scholarships given. I would say it's very, very few, almost zero. And like for a school like that, you need to be good academically. So if you want any sort of money at a Johns Hopkins or an Emory or an MIT, you need to apply for academic scholarships. That's the only way you're going to get your college paid for. Whereas D1, you can get both athletic and academic, but the percentages are really small of who actually gets those. And even now in 2021, Division I programs are on tighter budgets and they're giving less scholarships than they were 10 years ago. So there's just a lot of misinformation and just not enough transparency out there to parents on like how small the chances that their kid gets a scholarship, let alone an athletic scholarship at a top 25 D1 school. It's just meager. And if they even want to go after that, then there's not a lot of transparency on what it actually takes from a tactical, technical, but also physical standpoint, and just being really good at the game. And I'm just talking about soccer. And now that I work with female athletes, it's the margin for error needs to be really small. Like everyone's amazing, everyone's super competitive, but it's still not enough. Like a lot of these girls have to do more than what is expected of them, and that's not being said in youth organizations when they're talking about playing in college and going through that recruiting process.
Erica brings up a great point. There are no athletic scholarships at the Division III level, and in that case, you need to have a whole bunch of things other than your athletic ability because, and Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, there's so many great women's soccer players now. There are qualified Division I soccer players, female soccer players, playing at the Division III level because there's only 333 Division I colleges playing soccer right now at the women's level.
Right. And it's interesting when I talk to parents of young athletes, when D3 comes up as an option, some people really frown upon it. And it's so interesting because a lot of D3 programs like can crush a ton of D1 schools. Don't think that D1 means your kid is going to develop more as a player or they're going to be on a winning team. Like you need to look at the holistic picture when choosing a college and don't rule out like junior college, D3, D2. There's amazing coaches at those levels. There's amazing teams with great cultures. So don't rule that out at all. And then also on top of that, you can look at the academic side, and a lot of these schools will support the child academically and they'll just have this amazing experience. And that's why I chose Johns Hopkins. I actually turned down several D1 offers in the Big Ten and the ACC, but I wanted to be at a smaller school where I could focus on my academics, but I also really liked the team culture. I spent time on campus. I got to know the girls before I made that decision, and I'm really glad I did. And I just had an incredible college experience and started freshman year, played every single game, played a ton of minutes. And at the end of the day, like that's what you want. You want to go to a college where you can contribute to the team and be a part of that program. I know people who go to, D1 schools like Florida State University, and they're riding the bench for 4 years. And it's like, well, all that work you put in youth, like you're not able to shine and contribute. So people need to ask that question as well.
This is why we wanted her on. We want the truth. We want people, again, we call it the synthesis level of thinking. Take two seemingly unrelated things, put them together, and then come up again with your own conclusion. Erica, when you get to that level, not only is everybody good, but you really need to be a great teammate. And if you're on one of these club teams that's always winning, that's always traveling, when you get to that Division I, or as you just talked about, the Division III level, there's quite a sticker shock for a lot of girls, correct? And parents.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember going into that college preseason with the mindset of I have to keep putting in the work. I don't care what club team I was on. I don't care. I was on the best team in the state of Maryland at the time. I had to go into that summer before college preseason and put in the work, get to know my teammates before we met on campus, and just compete with them remotely and like hold each other accountable. You're meeting totally different people and personalities, and you have to be able to be a good teammate and be a good leader. And I don't think a lot of that is being taught now at youth clubs, and like you said, it is all about the winning and the rankings. I mean, I don't even know who's ranked number one anymore because there's so many national leagues out there, and so many teams. So a lot of that, when you enter college, it doesn't matter. So the best advice I can give to players wanting to play in college and contribute to the team is like, just don't be satisfied with your level. Like always work to improve your game, especially physically and mentally. And like by then everyone should be good technically and tactically at their sport. But what's going to set them apart is that mental grit and determination and being able to learn from failure, but then also really focusing on the physical training, because if you're a healthy athlete, then you're going to play all 4 years in college. So you got to be doing your strength training, your deceleration training, the injury prevention programs, all of that. And not a lot of people are. And then they get to that preseason and they either get injured or they're not ready for the demands of the fitness tests and all the two-a-days.
Erica, we're going to continue on that plane, but we're going to, as we like to do here, because we believe strongly in balance, the name of the show, the name of our company, is that people, it's very, very important that they understand that when you get to or try to get to this level, that there are so many things involved that luck plays a part of it. And people don't want to talk about that, but it really is timing, the right place. This person can get injured. I was a head coach of college hockey for 21 years. We kept our 25th spot open every year for a walk-on. But luck does play an important part in this, and we bring this up so that parents can realize no matter how much you spend, no matter how much you travel, no matter how much you put into, things can unravel, and there has to be a backup so that your daughter then can be a better wife, a better mother, a better business person, a better teacher, whatever it is that she picks for her career based on what happened there instead of having it crushing the dreams. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely is. And this is not talked about a lot either. And I always say the harder I work, the luckier I get, meaning the more I can expand the opportunities I have, then I'm going to be lucky. And with college recruiting, I was really focused on just working hard physically, but also like really honing like my talents. And that was being a fast left midfielder, and I was left footed. And at the time, the Johns Hopkins coach needed a left-footed midfielder. So it really comes down to like what you offer and what type of personnel they need at the time, what positions they need filled. But that's why you have to continue to work on yourself, really strengthen your strengths, work on your weaknesses, and then the more luck and the more opportunities you have. But that definitely plays a part with the timing and what the college coach needs for his or her program.
And in the college level, we're bringing in, like in hockey, we would bring in sometimes 3, sometimes 8. But in the soccer, where there could be 30, 35 women on the team, the coach may be bringing in 10 or 12 women each year. And can you just touch on Erica, even though he or she is bringing in 10 or 12, he's already looking 2 years down the road at another 200 women, correct?
Yeah, and I just love this conversation because parents don't know about this, but like when I went into Johns Hopkins, my freshman class was 12 girls, and that's a big freshman class.
Yes,
but yeah, he's already looking to recruit the class underneath us, and then the next year, and like that's still another like maybe 5 to 10 girls coming in each year. And I remember when I was a sophomore at Hopkins, our coach sent us an email with like the 8 freshmen coming in and like their bios and their backgrounds and their accolades. And I was like, oh crap, like these girls are good. But then it motivated me to work even harder and get a starting spot sophomore year and then junior year. Like you can't be satisfied. Like just because you like get into college, like doesn't mean you like made it. Like how are you going to keep improving each year when more and more people keep coming into the program and assimilating into the team? So that's not discussed either, because it's a competition each year. And even though you're on a team, like again, like no one talks about this, but you want to play. You don't want to ride the bench in college because it's a lot of time, it's a lot of practices and travel, and playing's more fun. Like you want to be out there with your teammates. So that's something that I want to be brutally honest about. Like it gets really competitive within those 4 years of college.
Excellent, Erica. So we're going to stay on this. I actually gave Erica a list of questions before the show, as I do with all our guests. And I'm so intrigued by her bio that we've basically thrown that questionnaire out. And so now I'm going to delve into something she just touched on peripherally. But again, it is really important for the parents and athletes to know this. Fact number 1, at that level, as Erica said, 3, 2, 1, NAIA, JUCO, everybody is good. 2, as I said, it's really important to be a good teammate. And then the thing that I want to ask Erica now, Erica, there are different ways to lead. You don't always have to be in front to lead. At the University of Rochester, where I was head coach, we had a sign that said, "You can't be my best player unless you're my best citizen, and take great joy in the accomplishment and success of others." We've lost that sense of community, Erica. Can you explain how important that is, not just for soccer, but for life, to understand even if you were great, you don't always have to be in front to lead?
Yeah, definitely. And, there's so many leadership styles, like leading by example, leading from behind and kind of being in the shadows. And like with the college team I was on, like you said, we had 35 women on that roster. That's a lot of people. And, if you weren't in that starting 11, you weren't really playing a whole lot. So really only half of the team was getting a good amount of playing time, but that didn't mean like the girls who weren't contributing on the field weren't contributing to the program. The team culture was phenomenal. And the best examples I can give was like in practice, we would always do like starters versus non-starters, and they gave us a run for our money. Like they pushed us. And that was really cool. And we also motivated each other when we were doing conditioning drills. And there was no one who like didn't contribute, whether it was pushing each other in practice or cheering each other on at the games or hosting like team pasta dinners the night before games. Like everyone was involved somehow and played their own role. And I truly believe that like if we start with each individual like owning their own role, whether it's on the field or off, then it just raises the collective. And that's important for everything. If you're an owner of a company, you need everyone in your company to contribute their role and raise the product or whatever you're promoting. It's important. It's important in families and communities, and we can't function by ourselves. we function by the inspiration of other people and by learning from others, and also being humble enough to know that like you don't have all the answers, and that's an amazing thing. And it's really about teaching each other new things and inspiring new ideas and creativity in any facet of life.
Erica, this is one of my pet peeves, pet things that I work, my seminars, the workshops, the presentations. And I want you to address it. And if you disagree, that's fine. I want to have a discussion about it. One of the things that's truly missing is the sense of community within the team. At the college level, which is only 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1% of all the girls, that's it, that go to college. 3 is 5, and then it gets down to almost 1% at the Division I level. At that level, it is play by performance. But as you're coming up through a club, and you've touched on it peripherally, but I want to ram this point home, is when you're coming up, and this is addressed to the coaches and to the parents that coach and volunteer, it is important that everybody play up through and including high school. 1, nobody gets better on sitting on the bench. But 2, more importantly, people say we have to win. I hear this all the time. And we never once said this at the University of Rochester with all the championships we won. This participation, this inclusion has now developed to such a point where it's inhibiting the development of our athletes.
Yeah, I think the focus is it's not as much the development of the athlete, but I would also go as far as to say the human.
Yes, that's our point. It's exactly what Balanced Excellence is about. Go.
Yeah, definitely. And this is something that I will shout until as long as I'm a coach, but it's about developing the total human who is physically healthy, mentally resilient, and yes, like tactics and technical stuff is great, but that stuff will end. It will end when that last game is played. So then what do you have left? You have your mental and your physical health and spiritual health if you want to go there. But a lot of coaches will say, well, sports teach life lessons. I don't believe that. The coach teaches life lessons because you can have a coach who's just totally degrading and maybe abusive. Like the sport isn't teaching the lesson, he is, and he needs to change his behavior. And it always starts at the top. It starts with us adults and us role models, and teaching young athletes how to handle challenges, how to understand that mistakes are just learning lessons, how to take initiative, how to own their talents, not just in sports, but in other parts of life. So maybe it's like music or drawing or writing, whatever it is, like own that too, because you might need that later in life. And your sport is just, it's very fleeting, and the longer that I'm in this is my 10th year of coaching. Honestly, like the less I care about like college scholarships for my athletes. Like it's, like I'm like almost jaded in a way. Of course I had like a great college experience, but it ends. It ends and we need to prepare athletes for when that ends, and we need to prepare them for the sport of life. So that's where I'm at. I'm a performance coach, and we're all about like numbers and scholarships and all that, and that's great, but it's not as much my focus now as it used to be in the first half of my career.
All right, here we go. 70% of all the children quit by the time they're 13. This is just a fact, playing youth sports. In 2019, 1.3 million children in the United States went to the emergency room with sports-related injuries. 800,000 of them were not touched.
Oh, gosh.
In other words, most catastrophic injuries happen long before the actual catastrophic injury. Can you explain that in sports performance terms to our listeners?
Yes, and this is something that I am shouting even more now. I think it's like ACL injuries alone have increased in the past 20 years by so much. I forget what the numbers are, but like we haven't gotten better is what you need to know. Like nothing's improved. So what's the problem? What's changed? I will say the first thing is just lack of free play in childhood, lack of like getting into new environments and challenges. And, I even just look back at like some of our childhoods, we were like wrestling with each other and grappling, and we were in these really intense environments and playing like 5 hours a day until dark, whatever it was, hide and seek or capture the flag, or maybe we were playing baseball. Like I grew up with my brother and all boys, and that was super helpful, but there's not a lot of free play. And there's physical and cognitive problems with that. So the physical problems, not getting enough stimulus to a variety of muscle groups. So with the soccer player, as an example, if we just have like an 8-year-old soccer player and that's all they do year round, they're overusing quads, hip flexors, and mainly the front of their bodies. And they're not getting love in posterior chain, hamstring, calves, back, shoulders. And they need that in order to become resilient to knee pain, ACLs, lower extremity injuries, soft tissue injuries. I see a ton of soft tissue injuries happening now. And this isn't kids. Like these should be injuries that occur in like older adults like us, So physically, the lack of free play is just, it's a problem because we're not developing motor skills and a variety of muscle groups. We're just overusing and overtraining. And then cognitively, there's just a lack of creative development. So if we're having a specialized athlete at a young age and they're going to organize sessions that are always supervised and we're constantly giving them all the answers to these rehearsed drills, that's a problem because they don't know how to think for themselves. It might slow down their reaction time and their agility level. And there's a lot of research out now on the brain's role in ACL injuries and how a lot of athletes, especially female athletes who have slower reaction times, are more likely to fall into faulty lower extremity movement patterns that can cause an ACL. So the free play is the one thing that's been missing, and it's one of the biggest causes of the injury epidemics that are happening. And then we can look at tech use and how it's hindering sleep and causing stress and kids being in a more sympathetic state. Like there's so many things that go into this. And this is when I say it is probably good that we return to the way things used to be done in this case. So we should go back to the 90s, get in the neighborhood and play, get off our mobile devices, have healthy home-cooked family dinners and community, and we'd all be better off.
Outstanding. Listen, Erica, one of the things we say, again, that is controversial is that you can get better at your sport by not playing it. You just proved that. But the second thing you said that we also want to touch on, again, we always try to incorporate balance, is we've lost the value of the family meal. And I'm not just saying the mom or dad cooking. We had our kids make dinner every Friday night, and literally sometimes it took 3 hours. But there was laughter, there was play, there was learning, there had to be some discipline sometimes. But that, again, with theme, that part at home, and we're not talking about soccer or sports over the dinner table, but that balance of having that home life as a safe base and therefore a building block when things don't go wrong, once again, has been lessened in its value and importance to these children, because even though they're the most communicable generation ever, they're most alone that we've ever done with the phones. Can you touch just how important, and you said a little bit about at Johns Hopkins, but how important family is for these girls now and in the future?
It's everything. I mean, family, friendships, relationships. We could go into all the research on isolation and depression and how detrimental that is. And it's important that families come back together. And it's just a lot of, okay, well, the phone or the TV's the babysitter, and that's not helping with the kids' social skills. It's not helping with the stress response in their body. It's not helping with their brain development, and constantly looking at blue light and flashing light and searching for a dopamine hit and external validation. I mean, there's so many layers to it. But when we bring the kid back into that family environment where there's, like you said, like laughter at the dinner table and just conversation, like put the phone away, it's calming. When you laugh, you calm your nervous system. It feels amazing. So we could even just talk about the benefits to the nervous system and brain development. But I think family needs to come back now more than ever. It's not to say get rid of tech. We have to have a balance, like you said. But it really starts in the household. And, I know a lot of parents who don't give their kids a phone until they're age 16. And I think that's a fantastic idea, especially in those youth years, elementary and middle school, when they're still developing the left and right hemisphere of their brain and their social skills. So I think it's extremely important to just find some sort of balance, and it's going to bring families back together. I mean, sports are great, but it's great to have family and good relationships too. Like, sports aren't everything.
Erica, fantastic. We really appreciate your time. We're going to keep going, as I like to say, drilling that the idea that a parent can coach from the sideline. Now, an athlete normally goes through 3 thought processes a second as they try and assimilate, or as I like to say, accommodate. And a lot of these children now have just become performers for the most part. But can you explain to the parents now and to the coaches how important it is to not speak to the children while they're playing in a game, so that they can own their journey? Because it's really all about the journey. Not only own their journey, but they can get that bond that you and I are talking about, family, friends, teammates, that if they're constantly getting instructions, they're not going to be able to handle the stress, whether it's on the playing field or in life.
Well, my question to the parents is, do you really think there's any benefit to you doing that? Like, honestly, like, ask yourself that question. Like, do you really think your child, in the heat of a game, and just like you said, trying to make all these decisions in a split second or less, do you think they're really listening to you? And is it actually helping your relationship with your kid? Think about that as well. And you touched on an important point, is making sure kids develop autonomy within themselves. And we can't always give them the answers. Sports are spontaneous. Sports are carefree. You should be in your flow state. And when you're in that flow state, you should feel like invigorated and joyful. Isn't that the point of sports? Especially when we're in elementary and middle school. I've gone to tournaments and I've watched like U8, U10 games, And I've seen parents acting a fool on the sideline. And I'm just like, okay, are you really like helping your kid? Are they listening to you? Are you improving your relationship with your kid by doing this? And is this really going to matter 20 years from now?
Yes. Outstanding. All right, their last two questions. We're going a little over this time, but like I said, I've wanted to talk to this lady for 6 months now. The last two questions. The first one is, we're very, very firm in this. I've worked with over, 5,000 kids and coach, blah, blah, blah. Is that the car ride is not talked about hardly at all. And it's a critical point to the children. And we know that with the high schools, even some of the colleges, the middle schools that I've talked to. On the ride to the game or practice, the only thing you should say to your child is, I hope you have fun. The new thing is, I love to watch you play. But the President's Council on Fitness says 30% of all the children that play high school and youth sports don't meet the President's Council on Fitness for minimum physical activity during a practice and a game. I watch 10-year-old coaches shortening benches. And on the way home, it's simply, I love you. Can you explain how important, if you disagree, feel free, but can you explain how important that is for the child to have that safe zone and still be able to be held accountable? Because really at that point, all they want is snack.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I totally agree with you. And the car ride home is the most crucial, because that decides whether or not the kid will have a good or bad taste in their mouth regarding movement and sports. So they're going to get a bad taste in their mouth with sports if they're constantly being criticized in that car ride home, or their practices being analyzed. And honestly, I don't think parents should watch team practice. Like, just let the coach take care of it. Like, trust the coach, like, let them have fun. Like, you're there to watch the games and support. But my question to all parents is, your behavior in that car ride home setting them up for loving sports and not dreading that car ride home, or getting that kid getting into the car with anxiety of what you're about to say. And that's one thing I can really thank my parents for, is they never criticized or analyzed. They were just there to really like cheer, and I turned out okay.
And it turned out great.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think people now, parents think they have to be like overbearing and like so involved, and like overtraining and overscheduling their kid. But it's like, when you look at some of the greats of sports, they did the opposite of that. They sampled a variety of sports. Like, they played in the neighborhood. They didn't play like travel or specialize in sport until like high school. Like Michael Jordan, Abby Wambach, Mia Hamm, Zlatan, like all of them. So we should look at that too, on top of all the research that you and I have dove into. But yeah, I think parents need to realize, like, are they acting and speaking in a way that's setting their kid up for a love for the game? Because as you mentioned earlier in the conversation, a significant percentage quit before age 13, and that's a very scary thing.
Abby Wambach is from my hometown, and at Mercy High School, she was a star basketball player. And this isn't the last question, but Erica touched on this, so I want it to be known, is college coaches will teach you the game. They're looking for great teammates and outstanding athletes that can make players around them better. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And there's some amazing college coaches out there, and that's the time for players to like reach their peak, unless they want to go pro, but they should by then be playing at a very high level, and the coach should just really be drawing their strengths out of them and like really amplifying those.
And if you just, thank you for your extra time, but if you keep working on your strengths. People don't understand that strength actually becomes a weakness because you lose the balance, and there's a huge dichotomy between your weaknesses and your strength. We would have our hockey players use their opposite sticks, play their opposite position, kickball, other things. It's really important that the brain understands how important balance is, and then for the body and the mind to be in balance and work together to make that happen, correct?
Yeah, the mind-body connection is not touched on a lot, and athletes they really need to own their strengths, but also take inventory of what they're not good at and keep working to improve. It's a process. It's ongoing, and if you fail and fall short, you have to be able to navigate that and do better next time. And that's where the mental piece comes in, and to not get discouraged, but rather use it as fuel and be like, okay, here's something I can get from this and learn, and I'm just going to keep evolving. And that's just life. That's life. It's a process. And even when these athletes graduate college, they're going to be in careers that are very demanding and high performing careers, and they're still going to mess up. I think everyone thinks it's just this like linear, like smooth sailing line, and it's just not. But lean into that and go in with the expectation that at a minimum, you're going to encounter challenges for a lifetime outside of sports. So what are you going to do to pivot into a more empowered direction?
And we want coaches and parents to know there is an enormous difference between failing and being a failure. And the children pick up on that. The athletes pick up on that. Failing is part of the process. It's part of the journey. Where being a failure, when you say that to a child, it resonates to them on so many different mental and physical levels. So, Erica, our last question, and it's going to be a controversial one, but we talk about it a lot. We talk about it everywhere we go. We believe strongly in EPUT, equal play under 10. And we get a lot of pushback. We're getting less and less, by the way, as the years goes on, which makes me happy. But we get pushback in terms of children have to earn their spot. The child that's doing all this extra thing should get more playing time. We say, and I've done over a dozen pilot programs, and they all work, all have worked, is that in this context of equal play, you need to like put this girl with that girl and this girl so that they will help each other and work with each other. So just playing equal play is not what people think it is. We're trying to say that the sum of the parts is more important than the individual parts. Equal play under 10, go ahead.
I'm with you there. I think the more the young ones are exposed to playing in new environments and competing against a variety of people, the more they're going to develop. And I would say, like, if in school, if we like come up with that analogy, if they're not given the same opportunity to learn as much math as their other classmates, it's kind of the same thing. It's like when we're on the field, we should be allowing everyone to play and explore and to get as much as they can mentally and physically from these environments.
And we call it the quiet quarter. You go to the coach that you're coaching against, and really at that age, you're not coaching against them. You're concentrating on your teams. And there is absolutely zero instructions to the children during that quarter. You, as an ex-athlete, please tell the parents and the coaches how important that is, that they don't have all these voices yelling at them and they can concentrate on what they're doing, as if you were doing your training job and you had 10 parents yelling at you while you were working with the athletes.
Well, every sport is a mental sport. I would say it's more so mental than physical, because sports they're spontaneous. They have a ton of decisions. You have to react to a bunch of external stimuli, and like no one's going to hold your hand through those decisions. So you have to let the kid really develop their brain's capacity to process information and to react and make an appropriate decision in the game. And the best way to do that is to allow them to figure out the answers on how to move their body, how to respond to an opponent, how to perform a move under pressure. We can't commentate the whole game. It's just not possible. So it's just coming back to that free play. I mean, there's a time and place for organized teaching, but for kids under 12, just let them play, or come up with fun task-oriented games where you give one task and then you leave as a coach and then they figure it out. Get out of the way. And parents as well. And if parents really want to help their kid develop their ability to react and have better cognition in their sport, get in the backyard and do some reactive sprinting, or do dodgeball with your kid, or just any type of game where there's no instruction and they have to figure out how to maneuver.
Erica, fantastic. As we like to do with our guests, please give us your website, how you would like people to get in touch with you if they would like to hire you for your services, which I recommend. Go.
Yes, my website is ericasuter.com, and yes, I do remote training services, but again, like, it's becoming more human focused and with the mental side. We still do the physical stuff, but it's more about the mental confidence and handling challenges through life. And then my Twitter is at Fit Soccer Queen, and so is my Instagram.
There you have it, Erica. Thank you very much for this extended podcast of the Balanced Excellence Show. We very much appreciate your time, expertise, wisdom, and patience with the host.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally make this happen.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.